it sounds great, right? Sciencey, sounds sciencey, it sounds helpful, healthy. You know, anything biotic sounds pretty good, right? I mean, like, oh, that's just something biotic.
It's
That
very,
sounds like
very catchy terminology.
the trouble is that there was no real explanation, and probiotics rather than prebiotics or postbiotics has just become the central focus.
And when used too long and overused, they're actually causing competition and causing more of an imbalance and more of a negative influence on gut health. Together, an industry disruptor
And renowned veterinarian discuss and debate established norms and new ideas in the pet world.
this is Challenging Pet Health.
Hello, Casey.
Why, hello with my best. That was terrible UK attempt.
Really? Shall I talk American? Well, hi there, Miss Katie. How are you doing? How are y'all doing today?
Howdy, partner. That was kind of a little John Wayne.
Howdy. Well, howdy. Here down in Louisiana, me and my bra and my sister and my pa, we all a big fan of Dr. Katie Kangas.
Well, thank you, Clayton. No, and for me in California, hey, dude, what's up?
Hey, dude, what's
Yep,
up?
it's beautiful today, and we're ready to have a phenomenal conversation.
Yes.
As always.
One thing that has annoyed me for a while is everybody using probiotics in absolutely everything, and people just seeing it as like this wonderful catch-all product that if your dog's got like a dodgy stomach, or you know, like it's got loose toilets or anything really.
Loose toilets, does that mean
Like as in like
loose stools
like-
and diarrhea?
exactly,
Just-
yeah. Everything from that to my dog's just not feeling well, or do you know what? I just like the idea of better gut health. Like people
Right.
just using probiotics for everything.
Continuously and constantly. And
Yeah.
that is definitely a little pet peeve of mine too. So it's a great topic to touch on today.
One thing people don't understand a lot of the time is the difference between pre, pro, and postbiotics.
Perfect place to start.
The way I would describe it is like prebiotics are about feeding the good bacteria in the gut.
Yep. Prebiotics are fermentable fibers, essentially. So when we talk about fibers, people may hear of, psyllium, inulin, larch, and veggies and, those kinds of fibers. So a lot of people hear, I should have more fiber in my diet, for various reasons. But one of them is so that you have a healthy microbiome that can ferment those fibers.
Probiotics are about putting new bacterial strains into the gut.
The good guy bacteria that we want in our gut.
And then postbiotics are about creating like the housing for a good culture.
So postbiotics are what the probiotics, the good bacteria in the gut that we're relying on to keep us healthy, it's what they create. And namely, some of the big postbiotic products that, we focus on is short-chain fatty acids, we call them. And these short-chain fatty acids often are butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Postbiotics help strengthen the gut barrier. They help our immune system. They help the gut-brain axis so our brain functions better. I mean, postbiotics are really freaking cool.
I could be wrong. You probably know more than me, but I don't see people using prebiotics continuously as anything other than a positive. And I see postbiotics being used in foods as genuinely beneficial.
You mean the probiotics?
No, postbiotics.
Oh, post.
Postbiotics.
Okay, yeah. I don't see those very oftenly used yet.
Oh, no. Like, so in Europe, there's quite a few products which are using postbiotics.
Ah, okay.
But I don't have a problem with those two things being used in products. But probiotics, I take serious issue with just not only the fact they're being used so carelessly, but also the fact that people don't understand what they are, and they've kind of just entered the sort of like zeitgeist as this great thing to give.
Yep.
When it's actually the use cases are way more narrow.
Yep. I completely agree that probiotics are essentially being overused, overdone, and as you said, over-relied on as being the end-all be-all. Like, just take probiotics and, you'll be healthier. You can make a case for using probiotics, of course, intermittently during or after a course of antibiotics. That makes sense. And quite frankly, I mean, there's research on the human side and the animal side with dogs and cats to show that if we are taking a probiotic product continuously for months to years on end, which most people do, especially when it's being put in foods and other products, and then sometimes people aren't even intentionally giving a probiotics. It's just in whatever they bought. A lot of times it is intentional. But point being, when this is going into the body every single day, month after month, year after year, it is out competing our own microbiome because it's using up all the resources, meaning the prebiotics, the food, and it's using up, quite frankly, the space in there. And probiotic products are generally designed to have billions of what we call CFUs, colony forming units, to be more potent, and partly because those, if you put billions of probiotics or bacterial organisms in there, it has to pass through the stomach acid and get to the lower gut and the colon where, the probiotics are doing their work and their thing for our body. So they put these billions of colonies in there to not only survive to where they need to go, but also to just be high in numbers so that they can perform well. And the problem is that our own microbiome is so important. And instead of supporting our pet's microbiome to be better and more diverse and more healthy, we're just covering it up by throwing in lab created probiotics. And believe me, these probiotics are friendly bacteria. They're good guys. They're coming in and they're doing some good things. But when they're overtaking the whole show and they're out competing really important canine or feline specific bacteria in their gut, then we end up with more of a microbiome imbalance. And they've shown that, pets that are on these products continuously have more of an imbalance than pets who take no probiotics at all.
Yeah, like before you'd even go near a probiotic. Now, probiotics, again, they have their use case. So if your dog's been on antibiotics, and there's lots of different use cases for it, but it's always very short-term use cases. Mm-hmm. But all I see as like an industry person is just like this over obsession with it.
It's true. When we first learned about the microbiome, everybody understood that, oh my God, our bacteria, and there's like a book out there saying less than 10% human, which is so amazing. I mean, our bodies are literally like, our bacteria in our bodies outnumber our number of cells by like 90% bacteria, 10% human cells. So even just to define the word microbiome for people, and this discussion might be a worthy thing, is that our microbiome is basically an ecosystem in our bodies that is teeming with beneficial organisms, which again can be beyond bacteria, but a lot of bacteria. And every system in the body has its own microbiome. Like our sinuses and respiratory tract have this microbiome. Our gut has a microbiome, our skin has a microbiome, etc. So there's a lot of different, systems of microbiomes. But the gut microbiome obviously takes such a central focus because our gut health is the center of our health. And this is where as soon as we learned about how important the microbiome is, everybody latched on to probiotics are, the end all be all, and let's take them every day.
The probiotics we use when we buy products, they're not the same probiotics that naturally occur in the stomach.
Right, in the gut, yep.
Yeah, so they're things that, like the probiotics we use, and like I don't know what the regulation here is in the US, but in the UK, there's only 5 different strains we're actually allowed to use in probiotic products. It's probably a bit looser in America, to be fair, but they're all aerobically grown, which means they're grown like outside with air.
With oxygen available.
With oxygen, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So they're oxygen loving or
whereas
using bacteria.
Naturally occurring probiotics in the stomach are anaerobically created. So again, just structurally different. And so what we should always be looking to do is feed and look after what's in there and make the natural probiotics thrive. Because what we're doing is we're really putting a foreign entity, and whether it's a good entity or a bad entity, it would not naturally occur within the microbiome. As you were saying, the problem is that if you just keep firing them in, you can end up with a monoculture of something which isn't native to the stomach.
Yep.
Or native to the gut microbiome.
Exactly.
And so what people are doing by this continuous use of probiotics is actually not only are they not helping, it can go the other way.
Right. You can cause a big imbalance and more of a problem, quite frankly. And it's nice to give people a little bit of a clarity around this, that if yourself or your pet are struggling with loose toilets, diarrhea,
Yep.
that if you're struggling with that, if you put in some good guy bacteria, even though they're not native normally to your system, if they're good guy, helping out, you can have purpose in that. I've had plenty of pet parents through the years that are like, oh yeah, I started a probiotic and that helped. Great. That is a short-term influence. And I'm not against a short-term influence to help, but what people don't understand or misunderstand, at some point when we keep consistently using it, it's actually causing a negative, influence rather than a temporary helping influence. So that's where I think the real misunderstanding lies, is people think more is better. And, I'm all about selective probiotic use, intentional use, using it intermittently when it makes sense. I mean, a lot of people are used to using for themselves or their pets, using a probiotic during or after a course of antibiotics to help, because we know that those probiotics are going to, those naturally bacteria in our gut are going to take a hit when we go on antibiotics, obviously. And so people are taking some to help the gut while the antibiotics are squashing, your bacteria. The problem is they're not forming new populations in your gut. So when we take antibiotics, or our pets are on antibiotics, it obliterates, good bacteria. When we take probiotics, it's not rebuilding our microbiome. Those beneficial bacteria that are in a probiotic product are just passing through. So they are doing some good work while they're there, and they're in and out within 3 days. And in fact, one of the reasons why I know that is because I do a lot of microbiome testing for my patients, and that's a stool, gut microbiome test. So we get an assay back of all the different groups of bacteria in that pet's stool, so we know if they have an imbalance of bacteria or an overgrowth of harmful bacteria. And that's one of the treatment strategies of helping a pet get healthier and having a healthier gut. But the microbiome testing on the stool test kit says, specifically in the directions, please stop all probiotics 3 days before you collect the stool sample to send it out to the lab, because they want to make sure that their assay testing of that pet's microbiome is reflective of the true residential population of the gut, not what's just passing through every day in their product. And within 3 days of not giving a probiotic, all those bugs that you were giving them are in and out, they're gone. And they're not creating or replacing anybody's microbiome. And when used too long and overused, they're actually causing competition and causing more of an imbalance and more of a negative influence on gut health.
So where do you think the whole thing came from? So I have a theory that I blame sort of some people from a few years ago who are like big podcasters and educators who literally were just talking about the gut microbiome. And the conversation of the gut microbiome has ramped up in the last few years enormously. Like
Huge.
No one used to talk about it much, but I feel like it's one of those things that it's a very complex issue. And I think that some of the people who were talking about initially were just oversimplifying everything. And it was sort of like, oh, I drink kefir yogurt and I, raw goat's milk and all this sort of stuff. There's natural probiotics and blah, blah, blah. And it sounds great, right? Sciencey. It sounds helpful, healthy. Anything biotic sounds pretty good, right? I mean, like, that's a something biotic.
It's
that
very,
sounds like
very catchy terminology right off the bat.
It sounds like it's going to restore balance, and it's going to. The trouble is I just feel like there was no due diligence done by everyone. It was sort of like, oh, you want a healthy gut, you need healthy probiotics in your stomach, and there's loads of people who don't have those things. Whip some kefir down your throat or some raw goat's milk, and Bob's your uncle, and you're now suddenly like a super healthy person with a functioning gut biome, and you're going to be mentally happier, and you're going to digest your food easier, and every life is going to be fantastic. But the trouble is that there was no real explanation, and probiotics rather than prebiotics or postbiotics has just become the central focus, because again, it's like talking about diarrhea in dogs. Like, one of the most important things I always say to people is to start with a prebiotic. Like, something like a pumpkin powder, like a high fiber, good fiber prebiotic.
To feed the good bacteria, to allow them to flourish naturally.
Yeah, like before you'd even go near a probiotic. Now, probiotics, there's lots of different use cases for it, but it's always very short-term use cases. But all I see as like an industry person is just like this over obsession with it.
It's true. We the whole medical community latched onto it, and let's be clear, it's a big moneymaker product. So then the whole supplement industry latched onto that too. And like you said, I mean, probiotics are such a competitive product now because they're everywhere. And I, like you, have some real concerns about manufacturers putting it in everything. So to me, like we've had other discussions about my love for digestive enzymes. It's one of the supplement products that I think is so valuable for pets and humans so that we digest our food better, our food's more bioavailable to us, we, have less inflammation in our GI tract, and digestive enzymes can serve so many good purposes. There are so many good pet product brands on the market that add probiotics to their digestive enzyme blend. At surface level makes sense. Okay, it's for the digestive tract and we know these good bacteria are, helpful in the digestive tract, but I think it's also because they know people will buy it if they see that there's probiotics in it. So it's this big buzzword and attractive, piece of it. And I'm seriously having trouble finding, which is why I'm going to create my own digestive enzyme in my product line. But it's difficult to find a digestive enzyme blend these days that doesn't have probiotics added to it. And digestive enzymes are something I like to promote for people to give on an ongoing basis. And I really want to help people steer away from overuse of probiotics on an ongoing basis. So I love when they separate them out and we use them intentionally and not overdone, which I know is what is annoying you as well.
Yeah, and again, it's first of all, it's people flushing their money down the toilet. To be honest, because that's what's happening is that you're using something in a use case where it doesn't make sense. But then also when we look at the products that are having it, like the method of delivery, also on the plus side, which is almost like a plus side for like long-term usage, but not a plus side for people who are paying money for it, is that if you're putting it into a tablet or you're putting it into a dry component, a lot of the probiotics that are put in will not survive that whole process.
Yeah. One of the reasons why they put 20 billion CFUs or whatever it is into a product so that at least some of them have a higher likelihood of making it to the lower GI tract where they're going to do their work. So, but you are right. I mean, a lot of them don't survive. However, there is one specific probiotic strain that does have a lot of clinical value or health value, and definitely worthy to talk about this particular probiotic, and it is called Saccharomyces boulardii. And a lot of people call it S. boulardii, S. boulardii for short. You can find it everywhere. It's everywhere now, available, in many, many brands. Saccharomyces boulardii is a unique probiotic because it is actually not a bacterial strain, it's a yeast organism. And so interestingly, what we now know in the medical space is that Saccharomyces boulardii or S. boulardii does not compete with good guy bacteria. So we've talked a lot about how all these probiotics are competing with the good guys and we're dampening them out and we're causing problems. S. boulardii does not compete with them, but it does compete with some bad guy bacteria. So most of the GI experts on the human side and the veterinary side are now supporting the use of Saccharomyces boulardii, S. boulardii, very differently than they would be of probiotics that could be competitive.
But would you say S. boulardii is something that can be used long term?
A lot of the experts, again, on the human and veterinary side, I stay pretty plugged into this. I've seen lots of lectures, lots of, educational pieces on it. And most people are saying this absolutely can be used long term. I still, because I err on the not overusing anything, I tell people that I'm not totally against using it long term, but I still would err on only using it intermittently or when needed, and then go from there and see if it's something that we should keep up. So from a marketing perspective, because you have a big background and a lot of opinions on that, what is your opinion on the trending now for some products in the pet supplement space to be including and advertising for canine-specific strains?
I think it's something that's better. Just because it's a better mono strain, it's still a mono strain. So I'd like, for me, from a marketing perspective, look, if I was selling them, I would 100% be on it's canine specific. This is so much better than this. But from like a realistic view, I still don't like either of them.
So health-wise, for dogs and cats, it makes sense to use those when you do use them.
Yeah.
But it still makes sense from a health perspective to not overuse them continuously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, when I'm talking about probiotics, I'm talking about consumable probiotics, not things like ingenious probiotics like the sprays, that sort of stuff, where things to help good bacteria, let's say, help with healing or with ear infections and that sort of stuff. Because again, like the whole body is a series of microbiomes. But when we're talking about commonly understood probiotics and commonly understood like microbiome, which we're helping, we're talking about the sort of the gut flora and that sort of stuff.
Yes, and I'm glad you made that distinction, because the products you're talking about, I'm very familiar and do appreciate those products where they're created with bacteria that are using up the resources that bad bacteria need and would use. These are topical products that can be used on the skin, in the ears, in the environment, that are naturally getting rid of bad bacteria. Like, what a great concept. But like you said, these are not consumable probiotics that we're putting into our gut and out competing other things. So there's a distinction there. And then the other part of this topic that I would love to touch on that is a distinction too is consuming natural foods that offer our bodies probiotics, like fermented foods. And of course, every traditional culture around the world had their, age-old uses of fermented foods. So we know that fermented foods were developed by, our ancestors for a purpose. I mean, to store the food and preserve it. Fermentation is beautiful for that. But it's also supporting our body's microbiome system in a much more natural way without competing and without being lab, made and not natural for our systems to have.
But again, it's because when you're eating a fermented food, there is bacterial variety is the important thing. Whereas when you're buying a probiotic supplement, there isn't. And that is my
love that you brought that in. That is so true. And some products just have one, like you said, one species that's highlighted in there at extreme amounts. Other products may have 2, 3, maybe up to 5. But generally, as you said, so true, there's very little diversity in typical probiotic products. There's high potency, meaning there's tons and billions of these organisms, but no diversity. And so we're out competing. A very healthy microbiome is known to be very diverse. And so even with feeding pets, if we're feeding the same thing to them every day without variety, the microbiome is naturally going to narrow because certain bugs feed off of certain groups of foods and things. And so the more diverse our diet, the more diverse our microbiome can be, which is better for our immune system and our gut health and our brain health and everything else.
And look, even when I'm recommending prebiotics, it's always things like whole foods, like pumpkin powder, or you can get it from, like, let's say things like rabbit fur, like from the treats. There's lots of natural ways you can, and a diversity of prebiotics you can sort of find. And again, because they are natural products, they're whole food products, you can, like I say, there's more than one function behind it.
Yeah.
And I think this is always the problem when you distill anything down to isolated strains and then just fire it in.
Yeah.
Is that number one, I don't think it works all that successfully, but number two, it causes problems if overused.
Well said.
Yeah, that's what I do.